Let's see if you guys can see what I'm doing here. Okay, I'm here. I'm gonna be mixing some paint, getting some paint ready. Okay. Oh, I need to. Don't forget Norma. Let me plug this light in here. There we go. Hopefully you guys are able to see what's going on here. If not, let me know. Thick, juicy paint. Yeah, I do paint like that. Some thick, juicy paint. So I'm gonna get some yellow. I'm gonna mix some yellow here. Okay, it's 200 milliliter. There we go. I'm gonna get my little tube wringer here. Just squeeze this puppy out. Like that. Just like that. And then put some oil in there. Very simple stuff. Get this. Let me get some toilet paper. I end up using toilet paper for this jam. So I keep some toilet paper, even though people are like running out of toilet paper right now. Everyone's like, I don't know why this thing runs out so fast. People are interesting. Okay, so what I do is that I'll get my palette and just kind of do this. Okay, and I try not to do more than one tube at a time, except for the white. When I mix white, I mix about 3 tubes, 2 to 3 tubes at a time. Yeah, it's just very simple like this, you know. No need to complicate it. No need to make it something it's not. Just what it is. Mix some walnut oil in there so that it's manageable, right? The paint that comes out of the tube is not manageable. It's perfect for heavy impasto, but I don't really like it because it's very difficult to handle. And so when I add some oil in there, it does what I want. Add a little bit more, not too much, because I don't want it runny. Okay, I don't want the paint runny, but I do want it to be flexible, and the consistency has to be very flexible. Look at that. You see that? Yeah, you see it. See? Super simple. And then I'm gonna do the same thing, but with another color, of course. I'm gonna get I'll clean my palette here, palette knife, and clean this. I'll add some oil here to clean it up. I only use oil as a solvent. I don't use any other solvents. I don't use turpentines, terpenoids, or whatever. I don't like fumes. All those things are pretty romantic, if you paint a little bit. But if you're painting a lot, they're not romantic anymore. They're actually yeah, I don't like them. They're pretty nauseous. Let me get some red. So now we're gonna mix some red here. Which oil is it? My God, which oil? Walnut oil is what I use. I've been using that for I don't know how many years now. I've been using that for like 7 years, maybe. Just walnut oil. We'll be doing the same thing with then the tube ringer again. And that's it. Put some walnut oil on that. Let me try to remove this other oil, this other paint. So again, try to get that walnut oil in there. Now you don't have to use this. I'm just showing you what I'm using. There's many reasons why I use this. One of them, it's natural. Of course, it's walnut oil. So I'm not, and I don't like using water soluble solvents or water soluble paint, not solvents but paint, because I think it's just pretty fucking stupid. If I wanted to do that, I would just use acrylic paint. I find it hilarious, because I tried it. I was like, oh, I'm gonna get some water soluble oil paint, and I was like, what the hell am I doing? It doesn't behave anything like oil paint. It's, if anything, it's like a impasto acrylic paint. And so I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that anymore. And so I had to find out a way to paint with oils, but something that was less toxic. I didn't have to be smelling all those fumes. Is your class over? Dan? Is your class over?
Yeah, my class is over.
Oh. Gotta monitor my kid. Look at that. Never understood water soluble paint. Yeah, I have no idea about it. And I tried it, because I was like, man, I gotta look for something better. I was like, maybe that's the answer. You're trying stuff, so you're looking for. You're looking for stuff, Can you turn it down a little bit? Just a little bit. Thank you. All right. Let's see. So I got that. Get some red. I might mix some magenta, but I think I'm fine with the magenta right now. I might mix some in a little bit. All right. Let's do a painting. What do you guys say? Let's do a painting. Don't you want to do a painting? Come on, let's do a painting. Okay, let's do a painting instead. All right. Let's start with an 11 by 14 little canvas here. And let's just see what happens. Okay, calmly see what happens. We're gonna calmly see what happens. Just for kicks. Let me get one of my new brushes. Pulling out a new brush. And just get a little bit of walnut oil and some black paint. Just a little bit. And we're gonna paint a little sailboat here, okay? So just bear with me. Hey Dan. Look at that. Little sailboat right here. I do something like that. It's a very minimalist little drawing. This is something that I've been a proponent of for a long time. I think there's a lot more that can be done if you do less. And when I'm talking about the design, I'm not talking about if you work less. I'm talking about if you do less in terms of design. I think there's a lot there's a lot to be said about that in positive light. Look at that. Look at that. Is someone here? Okay, let me go check. Thank you. All right, I'm back. Apologize for that. My dog just likes to lose his fucking mind every time the UPS drives by. All right, let's do this. Man, not all days are the same, I swear. Days are different. The trick is to show up regardless of how shitty some moments are. Or how, what do they call it? Non-cooperative some moments are. If I only showed up when things are cooperative with me, I would not do this for as a full-time gig. There's no way. This painting full-time is almost never cooperative. The first reason is you're not hired by someone, so you don't even have to show up. No one's hiring you. You know, in a job, you kind of have to show up, otherwise you get fired. But if you work for yourself, you kind of have to impose that on yourself. You have to have your own discipline around that, and so many other things. You know, so many other things to complain about throughout the day. Because you're working from home. Although I have an art studio, I'm not really working from home, but you're working from home. You know, you're working from home, and so everything gets in the way because it's basically your personal life. You know, and so it makes it. I understand when people are like, "Man, it's so damn hard to show up." I get it. I get it because you're trying to show up to you're trying to show up to work in the comfort of your home. Very difficult to do that. Very difficult. Or in the comfort of your what do they call that? The comfort of your own discipline. Your own discipline is the worst thing because most of us are not disciplined enough. We're disciplined enough for some things in our lives, but not disciplined enough for others. You know, and work is one of those things that seems to be very difficult, especially when you're doing it on your own. To discipline oneself around that, it's very, very difficult. And so this is one of the reasons I say not all days are the same. I go through days that just don't feel like showing up, don't want to. It seems like everything gets in the way, and that's what makes it tricky. That's really the trick. You know, that's really the trick. If every day was easy, there would be no problem being a full-time artist. But every day carries its challenges. Aside from the work, right? The challenge that most artists have, it's not the work itself. It's getting to the work. That's the real challenge. Like I said before, in a job, you can get to the real work, or at least you get to clock in, because if you don't clock in, you get fired. And so that, to a certain degree, that keeps you accountable, very accountable, to at least clock in. But when you work for yourself, it's different. And so this is one of the reasons why I understand when artists express to me, dude, it's just so damn difficult, you know, my this, my that, my personal life, my own challenges, my spouse doesn't like me painting full time. Or when you work for yourself, here's another thing also. When you work for yourself, you have to work at least twice as hard. At the very least. Twice as hard and twice as much than if you work for someone else. Otherwise, it's very difficult to make it. Because when you work with someone else, again, you're entering something that is already established. You know, especially if you're getting a paycheck, it's already established. Someone already, it's a fill in the spot type of deal, right? You're gonna do this and you're gonna keep doing this. We already figured out how you're going to get paid. We just need you to do this function. Most jobs tend to be that way, unless you get into sales. They're a little trickier, but very similar either way. Very similar too. Someone went and got the accounts, or if you have to go get your own accounts, someone already set up the little trail where you go, and it's up to you how far you want to go. But someone already set up the little trail. When you work for yourself, there is no trail. You're in the middle of the woods. There is no trail. There is no, oh yeah, if I just keep doing this, there's no such thing as that. You know, it's all figuring it out. It's all about figuring it out. If I do this, I get X amount of results. If I do that, I get X amount of results. And most of us spend our time figuring things out, especially in the beginning. So again, I completely understand the frustrations that artists share about that. I know because I lived it myself, and I continue to do so from time to time, where you realize that doing things on your own require more drive than doing them for someone else. You really have to really have to put your back into it. And the payout, of course, is beautiful, and the reason why is because you do have the flexibility to say, you know what, I'm going to go and do this today because this matters to me. Whatever it is, whether it's your children's, piano recital, or an emergency or whatever. You don't have to go ask your boss. But at the same time, like I mentioned before in other videos, that flexibility is really not true, because you have to make up that time somehow, somewhere. And the people that work for themselves tend to think that they have more time, but it's the opposite. You actually have less time. If you're not careful, all you're doing is biting into your productive hours. And that's one of the hardest things to figure out, actually. That is one of the hardest things to figure out. There's no figuring out needed, but to come into terms is what I'm trying to say. Is that when you work for yourself, you don't have the time that you think you have. I made that mistake for about, I don't know, for a lot of years. I made that mistake thinking that I had all this time, and so I would interrupt my day. I would interrupt my day with all kinds of things. And that leads you, because when you interrupt your day, you interrupt your productivity. And when you interrupt your productivity, your numbers change. And so you have all kinds of funky numbers, If you're not selling yet, you have all kinds of funky returns, right? Like things that feedback. And so it's all like funky. And that gets you to lose faith in what you're doing. But it's not because you're doing something wrong. It's because there's not a strong discipline, like a job. It's not a strong discipline. And so it's not like you're doing anything wrong. I mean, if there is anything wrong, is the lack of understanding that you don't have more time when you work for yourself. It's not true. Someone telling you that, they probably never worked for themselves before. And so you have to keep your eye on that ball constantly. Constantly keep your eye on the ball, and be mindful that you will get tempted to play around with your time. You will. And in my experience, my personal experience, that's really the battle of being a self-employed artist. That's really the main battle is the lack of understanding that you don't have wiggle room to play with your time. But it looks like you do because you're your own boss. So it looks like you do, but you really don't. Jay says, I work longer hours self-employed than I ever did corporately. Yeah, there's no comparison. No comparison whatsoever. Yeah. Self-employed, I put in 16 or 18-hour days, especially when I first started. Sleeping 5-6 hours a day. and then you start getting the hang of it, right? You start getting your rhythm. But I think it requires so much discipline, because it does get easier right away. If you're disciplined, it gets very easy. It gets very easy because you fall into a discipline, and there's nothing more powerful than a discipline. A discipline is everything. It doesn't matter what the discipline is, whether it's a good one or a bad one. A discipline is it's the game changer. You know, whether it's a good discipline or a bad one, it'll change your life. Look at this. What size is the background brush? Yeah, it's a 16. Hey, baby. So that's what I found out anyways. There's nothing more difficult than putting together a strong discipline around your work. And this, by the way, this happens to me too. It's not something that I'm like pontificating here. That doesn't happen to me. Of course, it happens to me. When I coach artists, and we put a plan together to get them to reach higher ground in their goals. Most artists don't fail because they lack the information. Most artists don't fail because they lack the information. They blame the information. Lots of artists blame the information. They're like, well, it's probably not this because of that. But no, I'm 100% convinced, based on my experience in this game. If it hasn't worked the way that you want it to work, it's not because you're not discovered yet. It's not because your work is not that good or whatever. It's because
Did he hear you? What? Did he hear you? Yeah, I said here.
It's because again, the discipline is the hard part. And so we put together plans. Although I have had very good experience with artists that are barely starting out. Artists that are barely starting out seem to be hungrier than the ones that have been doing it for a while. The ones that have been doing it for a while tend to be a little bit more jaded. As a matter of fact, some of them even say that they know everything. Right? They're like, yeah, I know what you're talking about. I know exactly what this is. But that's just part of being jaded, right? Because it's information overload that gets people to think that they've done it already, or that they know the information. What a lot of people have is information overload. They've read a lot of articles, watched a lot of videos, that type of deal. So their mind tricks them into thinking that they already did it when they just read about it. And that's a real challenge though too. It's a really big challenge to work through. It's a really big challenge because we, as a society, I think that many of us have turned into consumers of information, not necessarily doers, and that makes it very difficult. Thank you. That makes it very difficult, and I've noticed that in my own experience, in my own career, how difficult that becomes, because again, our minds trick us into thinking that we've done it, that we're doing it. One of the things that I learned from a mentor when I started moving from amateur to pro, one of the things that I learned from a mentor was to recognize the difference between doing, thinking, planning, and saying. And the only way that you can tell that you're actually doing is to log the work, to log it to the minute. That has been one of the hardest lessons in my life. So, for example, what does this mean? To log something to the minute? Well, how many minutes or hours are you working on any particular part of your career, whether it's painting or marketing your work on a platform or whatever? So you log in. Let's say you painted for 2 hours. You log that in. Painted for 2 hours today. Or you put it on a calendar, and you put Monday, blah blah blah, such and such day, the 16th, right? November the 16th, 2 hours painting. 2 hours. I painted for 2 hours, and you log that, and you do that every day. You keep logging it. You keep logging it. And it seems so easy, right? Because it's so easy to say this. Where it gets tricky is when you start doing it. But the only way to prove that it was actually done is if you logged it in. If you didn't log it in, there is no proof, because the mind is very tricky. The mind will get you to, if you work on something for 2 weeks and a month, even a week, your mind will get you to believe that you worked on it the entire month. Your mind will get you to believe that you overworked yourself and you did it for like a whole month, when in fact you only did it for 2 weeks or 1 week. And so the mind is a very tricky instrument, and it needs to be and you need to put it in check all the time. And so that's something that I learned from a mentor. It was probably the most valuable lesson for a career artist to learn. Is log. Every activity needs to be logged with time and progress. What happened? What did you do for those 2 hours? Did you prepare a canvas? Did you paint something? Did you make a painting? Did you make 2 paintings? Did you make a sketch? What was it? What was the progress of that, of those 2 hours? And the next day, what was the progress of those 2 hours? And then that starts giving you access into understanding really what's happening. And it's a hard shoe to swallow, because our minds convince us that we are ultra busy. And once you look at the numbers, you even tell yourself, I know this happened to me. You even tell yourself, but how? Oh my God, but how? Because I felt like I worked so hard all this month. How was it that I was only able to do this of my goal, right? Because you project your goal. You're like, well, I'm going to do 2 hours every day, painting, and then I'm going to list one of my paintings every day or whatever, or once a week or whatever your plan is. And a month goes by. By the way, when it starts getting really good is when you start marking the days you didn't do anything. And again, another thing that I learned, I can share it here with you guys, is I'll put an X on something that I didn't do, but I'll actually write all the things that I did that prevented me from doing my work. And so I'll write that in too. And I don't type it, I write it on paper so that I have it in front of me at all times. And so I'll be like, okay, dentist visit, right? Or went and bought groceries, changed the oil in the car, blah, blah, blah. And I'll write down so that I don't mistake not doing what I was supposed to do for something else. So I don't make up stories in my mind. Because again, the mind is very tricky. You'll start making up stories that you didn't do it because of this, or you don't know why you didn't show up and paint that day. You don't really remember. The mind is tricky because it's forgetful. It's forgetful. That's why it's so tricky. That's why I log everything. If I start a new habit, like I'm gonna start writing an article on LinkedIn once a week or every day or whatever, I log that in too. Anything new that I start, I have to log it in because what's most difficult, again, is building the discipline. The difficult part is not doing the thing; it's doing it every day, or whatever days you sign up to do it. That's the difficult part. Doing something is easy. It's actually very easy. But making sure that you do it and something else doesn't show up, that takes a lot of discipline. And so it's been my experience, again, my friends, that most artists fail at the game, not because they don't paint well, or not because things are not going their way or whatever. No. It's okay. It's got to do with can you switch over to your phone so that we can drive over there in a little bit?
Yeah, I can switch over to my phone if you want to, whenever you need.
Okay, I'll let you know in about 10 minutes, okay? Look at that. So you're still doing the logging? Yeah, the logging doesn't stop. The moment I stop the logging, everything crumbles. I just want you guys to know that. Like, the logging is as important as creating the artwork or doing the work, because the logging keeps me, see, again, because you're working for yourself. I would like to think that I have the character of a president, or a good president, right? Not just any president. I would like to think that I have the character of I don't know, a high performance businessman or something, like the work character, not their entire life character, but the work character. I would like to think that of myself, but the reality is
tend to
yeah. But the reality is that it's not true. If it was true, it would be very, very. I would be having those results. That's the word I'm looking for. I would be having those results. And so the reality is that it's not true. I'd like to think that I want to develop that. I like to think that at some point I'm going to have that type of discipline. But the reality is that it's not. Is it available? Yes, it is. Do I have it? Probably not. Probably not, because I don't have the results. See, the results tell you what you have. I think that anything that we build in our lives is due to character in that area, to discipline in that area. So no one else is holding me accountable. So I have to figure out how to hold myself accountable. See, Bill says, my coach told me if it's not in your calendar, it does not exist. Absolutely. I could not agree more with that. If it's not in your calendar, not only if it's going to happen, but if it happened, right? If you wrote it down, what happened today? You log what happened. Okay, this happened today. I did one painting. I posted on Etsy. I contacted this person for a commission, blah, 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 blah. These were my actions. These are actions that, by the way, I need to repeat again tomorrow. If it's not there, it never happened. It's just, it should not exist if it's not there. Okay, my friends, I gotta go take care of some stuff. I'm gonna leave this painting like this for right now. Hope everybody's doing great. Hope this little talk was worth anything to anybody. And stay on top of it. Take care. All right. Peace out, my friends.